The Krell thought they knew everything about fear. They thought we were just soft targets waiting to be crushed. General Vark wanted to break my spirit. He wanted to show me the most terrifying predators in the galaxy. That he showed me monsters that could bite through spaceships. Beasts that had conquered 1,000 worlds, but honestly, I wasn't impressed. I had seen more dangerous things in my neighbor's backyard than so. I looked him in the eye and asked, "General, do you want me to bring a cat?" He thought a cat was a secret human war beast. He had no idea, he was absolutely right. The room was cold, dark, and smelled like old metal. Deep inside the massive alien warship known as the Zog, Commander Sarah sat in a heavy chair. Her hands were cuffed to the table, but she did not look afraid. Standing around her were 4 giant creatures called the Krell. They were 8 feet tall, covered in thick black armor that looked like the shell of a beetle. Their eyes were glowing red, and they moved with a scary, clicking sound. These were the most feared warriors in the galaxy, and they wanted Sarah to be terrified. That I in the center of the room, a large holographic screen turned on. General Vark, the leader of the Krell, stepped forward. His voice sounded like grinding stones. He pointed a sharp claw at the screen. "Look, human," he hissed. "This is the Night-Stalker from the moons of Xylos. It has 10 eyes and can see through walls. It has killed 1,000 soldiers with its poisonous fangs." The video showed a massive, ugly beast tearing through a metal door. The sound of the beast screaming filled the room, making the walls vibrate. General Vark looked at Sarah, waiting to see her cry or shake with fear, but Sarah did nothing. She did not jump. She did not scream. She simply leaned back and yawned. She looked at the screen as if she were watching a boring weather report. This made General Vark very angry. He clicked his claws together and changed the video. "You think that is nothing? Look at this. This is the Death Ripper of Nebula 9. Its skin is harder than diamond, and its teeth can bite through a spaceship's hull. No species in the universe can survive a meeting with this monster." The screen showed a giant creature with huge muscles and long, bloody claws. It was a nightmare come to life. The other Krell soldiers in the room stood tall, proud of their collection of horrors. They believed that by showing Sarah these monsters, they would break her spirit. They wanted her to realize that humans were weak. "Humans are soft," General Vark shouted, stepping closer to Sarah's face. "You have no natural armor. You have no sharp claws. You are just meat and bone. We have seen the most dangerous predators in the stars, and you are not one of them." Sarah finally looked up at him. A small, playful smile crossed her lips. She sighed deeply and shook her head. "Is this really your best work, General?" she asked in a calm, steady voice. "I mean, sure, they are big. They have a lot of teeth. But honestly, they look a bit, try hard. It's all just for show." The Krell soldiers gasped. No one had ever insulted their collection of predators. General Vark's red eyes glowed brighter. He felt insulted. He had conquered worlds using the fear of these beasts. "You speak big words for a tiny prisoner," Vark growled. "Show us a predator from your world that is better than these." "You cannot, because Earth is a planet of weak mammals." Sarah tilted her head to the side. She acted as if she were thinking very hard. Then, she looked Vark right in his red eyes. "You know," she said slowly, "if you really want to see a perfect predator, I can show you one. My neighbor back on Earth has a pet. Compared to that little guy, your Death Ripper looks like a big, dumb puppy." The room went silent. General Vark laughed, a dry and scary sound. "A pet? You think a human pet is scarier than the kings of the galaxy? You are losing your mind, Commander." Sarah didn't back down. She whispered, as if telling a secret, "This creature doesn't need 10 eyes. It has 2, and they see everything. It doesn't need to be giant. It is silent. It is fast. And it kills because it's bored, not because it's hungry." So, General, do you want me to bring a cat? The Krell looked at each other. They had never heard the word cat before. To them, it sounded like a secret weapon or a high-ranking human war beast. They imagined a creature with silver skin and laser eyes. A cat? Vark repeated, testing the word. Is this cat your most elite biological weapon? Does it require a heavy cage and energy shields? Sarah tried very hard not to laugh. Oh, yes, she said seriously. You definitely need to be careful with it. It's a ginger one, too. Those are the most unpredictable. General Vark turned to his guards. He felt he had to prove the Krell were superior. He wanted to humiliate Sarah by showing that her cat was nothing compared to his monsters. Fine. Vark shouted. Bring this cat to our ship. We will put it in the testing chamber. We will show you that your Earth predator is nothing but a joke. We will record its defeat and send the video to your leaders as a sign of your weakness. Sarah nodded, her eyes shining with a mysterious light. Deal, she said. But don't say I didn't warn you. As the guards led her away, the Krell began preparing their heaviest weapons, expecting a giant monster to arrive. They had no idea that a small, orange ball of fur was about to change their lives forever. The atmosphere inside the docking bay of the Zog was thick with tension. Thousands of Krell soldiers stood in perfect rows, their heavy metallic boots clicking against the floor. They were armed with plasma rifles, energy shields, and long, vibrating spears. General Vark had ordered his finest warriors to gather, believing that the human cat would be a massive, bloodthirsty beast. He had even installed extra titanium walls around the landing zone. The Krell were nervous. They had heard the stories Sarah told about this silent killer, and they expected a monster at least 20 feet tall with muscles like iron. The giant holographic screens overhead were recording everything, ready to broadcast the defeat of Earth's greatest predator to the entire Krell Empire. The heavy blast doors of the docking bay began to hiss and slide open. A thick white mist poured out from the human transport ship. The Krell soldiers raised their weapons, their red eyes darting back and forth, looking for a giant shadow or the sound of a heavy roar. But there was no roar. There was only the steady, rhythmic sound of boots hitting the metal floor. Commander Sarah walked out of the mist, looking calm and completely relaxed. In her right hand, she wasn't carrying a weapon. She wasn't leading a giant beast on a chain. Instead, she was carrying a small, plastic box with a wire door and a handle on top. It looked like something a human would use to carry groceries, not a weapon of war. General Vark stepped forward, his massive shadow falling over Sarah. He looked at the small box and then looked at the empty ship behind her. His mandibles clicked in confusion. Where is it? He demanded, his voice echoing through the silent bay. Where is the beast you called the cat? Do you hide it behind a cloaking field? Or is it so large that it cannot fit through our doors? The Krell soldiers leaned forward, their sensors scanning the area for hidden energy signatures. They could not believe that a human would come to a challenge empty-handed. They thought it was a trick, a clever human trap designed to make them lower their guard. Sarah stopped in the middle of the bay and placed the plastic box on the floor. She knelt down and looked at the Krell leader with a mysterious smile. He's right here, General, she said softly. But I must warn you. He has had a very long nap, and he is not in a good mood. If I were you, I would tell your soldiers to keep their fingers away from the cage. The Krell soldiers laughed, a harsh, buzzing sound that filled the room. They thought Sarah was joking. They thought the box contained a virus or perhaps a small mechanical bomb. Vark sneered, you bring us a box of air. Open it, human. Show us this predator, or we will end this game right now. With a slow, deliberate movement, Sarah reached for the latch on the wire door. The click of the lock sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. She pulled the door open and stepped back. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The Krell held their breath. Then, a small, furry, orange head poked out of the box. Oliver, the ginger house cat, stepped out onto the cold metal floor. He was small, weighing no more than 10 pounds. His fur was bright orange with white stripes, and his tail was long and fluffy. He sat down, looked up at the 8-foot-tall armored aliens, and let out a long, loud yawn, showing his small pink tongue and tiny, needle-like teeth. The silence that followed was deafening. General Vark stared down at the tiny creature. He looked at the cat's small paws and its soft, round ears. Then, he burst into a roar of laughter that shook the very walls. "This," he screamed, pointing a claw at Oliver. "This is the Deathbringer. This is the creature that is scarier than my Nebula Ripper. It is a ball of fluff. It has no armor. It has no spikes. I could crush it by simply stepping back." The soldiers joined in the laughter, lowering their weapons and mocking the tiny animal. They felt insulted that they had prepared for a war against something so small and pathetic. But Sarah didn't laugh. She watched Oliver. The cat had stopped yawning. He was no longer looking at the aliens, he was looking at the room. His ears started to twitch, turning toward the sound of the humming engines. His tail began to flick back and forth, a sign of growing irritation. Oliver didn't see giant, scary aliens. He saw large, loud, moving towers that were making too much noise. He walked over to General Vark's massive, armored boot. The general froze, not out of fear, but out of curiosity. Oliver sniffed the metal, found it cold and boring, and then did something that shocked everyone. He looked Vark right in his glowing red eyes and let out a sharp, commanding meow. The laughter died down instantly. There was something strange about the sound. It wasn't a cry for help, it was a demand. Oliver wasn't afraid. He was standing in a room full of the most dangerous killers in the galaxy, and he acted like he owned the place. Sarah stepped closer to the general. "You see, General," she whispered, "most animals in the galaxy run away when they see something bigger than them. But not a cat. To a cat, the entire universe is just a collection of things that either belong to him or are beneath him. You think he is small. He thinks you are just a very large, very ugly piece of furniture." General Vark felt a strange chill run down his spine. He looked at Oliver's eyes again. The cat's pupils were beginning to change, turning from thin slits into wide, black circles. Oliver crouched low to the ground, his back arching slightly. He wasn't looking at Vark anymore, he was looking at a small flying repair drone that was buzzing near the ceiling. The drone was fast, moving at high speeds, but Oliver's head tracked it with terrifying precision. The Krell's advanced computer started to beep. "General," a scientist shouted from the balcony, "the creature's focus is 100%. Its brain is processing movement faster than our combat droids. It is not playing, it is targeting." The suspense returned, heavier than before. The Krell realized that while they were looking at a pet, the pet was looking at them like they were prey. General Vark was not convinced by a simple meow. He signaled his guards to move the group to the Apex Arena, a massive combat testing chamber used to train Krell elite warriors. The room was a giant hexagon made of reinforced glass and sensors that could track movement at the speed of light. Sarah walked calmly, carrying Oliver, while the Krell soldiers followed with their heavy weapons ready. They still thought this was a joke, but the way Sarah smiled made them feel uneasy. Inside the arena, the lights dimmed, and the floor glowed with blue energy. Sarah placed Oliver in the center of the vast, empty space. The small ginger cat looked around, his whiskers twitching as he felt the vibration of the ship's massive engines through his paws. To the Krell, he looked like a lost toy. To Sarah, he was a biological masterpiece waiting for a reason to move. General Vark sat behind the control desk, his many fingers clicking on a holographic keyboard. "We will now test your Predator against our Level 1 scout drones," he announced over the speakers. "These drones move faster than a Krell warrior can see. They are designed to distract and tire out an enemy. If your pet is truly a killer, let us see if he can even touch one." Two small, metallic spheres emerged from the walls. They hovered in the air, glowing with a red light, and then began to zip around the room at incredible speeds. They made a high-pitched humming sound, darting back and forth like angry insects. The Krell soldiers watched the screens, waiting for the cat to run away and hide in a corner. At first, Oliver did nothing. He sat down and began to lick his right paw. The Krell laughed. "He is cleaning himself while death flies around his head," one soldier shouted. But Sarah noticed something the aliens missed. Oliver's ears were not still. They were rotating independently, like satellite dishes, tracking the exact frequency of the drone's humming. His tail was no longer flicking, it was held low and stiff. Suddenly, the drones changed direction and dived toward Oliver at full speed. In that split second, the cute pet vanished. Oliver's body didn't just move, it exploded into action. His pupils dilated until his eyes were two black voids, absorbing every bit of light in the room. He didn't run away, he launched himself into the air, spinning his body with a grace that defied gravity. The Krell scientists gasped as their monitors began to flash red. "Warning! Target movement exceeding biological limits," the computer screamed. Oliver had leaped nearly 6 feet into the air, his front paws reaching out with lightning speed. Clack! His claws, sharp as surgical needles, hooked into the first drone's metal casing. With a powerful flick of his wrist, he slammed the drone into the floor, shattering its sensors. Before the second drone could react, Oliver landed softly on all 4 paws, making absolutely no sound, and immediately leaped again. He used the wall as a springboard, flying across the arena like an orange blur. He swiped the second drone out of the air, pinning it to the ground with his weight. The humming stopped. The drones were dead, the arena went silent. The Krell soldiers stopped laughing. They looked at the screens, which were playing the movement back in slow motion. Even at 1/10 the speed, Oliver's reflexes were faster than anything they had ever recorded. General Vark stood up, his face full of shock. "How?" he whispered. "He has no jetpacks. He has no targeting computer. How did he know where the drone would be before it even moved?" Sarah walked to the glass and looked at the general. "He didn't need a computer," she said. "He has millions of years of evolution telling him exactly where his prey is going to be. His brain is a combat processor that never turns off. You think you are the hunters of the galaxy, but my species spent thousands of years trying to make sure these guys didn't eat us while we slept." The suspense in the room grew heavy. General Vark looked at the cat, who was now calmly sitting over the broken pieces of the expensive drones, looking bored again. But the general noticed something terrifying. Oliver was looking back at him through the glass. The cat wasn't looking at the general's face, he was watching the pulsing vein in the general's neck. The Krell realized that this small creature wasn't just testing the drones, he was studying the aliens. He was learning their movements, their sounds, and their weaknesses. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Krell felt like they weren't the ones in control. They were in a room with a creature that didn't fear them, didn't respect them, and was only waiting for the glass to break. The Krell scientists were frantically typing on their keyboards. The data on their screens made no sense. They had analyzed Oliver's movements during the drone test, and the results were terrifying. General Vark stood behind them, his heavy armor feeling heavier by the second. He watched the replay of Oliver leaping through the air. The computer showed that the cat's body had twisted 180 degrees in mid-air while his head stayed perfectly level, locked onto the target. "What is this creature made of?" Vark whispered, his voice trembling. "How can a living thing move like liquid and strike like a spear?" He looked at Sarah, who was standing by the glass, watching Oliver lick his fur as if nothing had happened. Sarah turned toward the general, her expression serious. "You see a pet, General, but I see a biological masterpiece," she began. She walked over to a large holographic display of a cat's skeleton. "Look at this. A cat doesn't have a fixed collarbone like you or me. Their shoulders are attached to their body by muscle, not bone. This allows them to squeeze through any space that their head can fit through. They are the ultimate escape artists. If there is a hole in your ship the size of a coin, Oliver can get through it. He is a ghost that can walk through walls. The Krell soldiers shifted uncomfortably, checking the small vents in the walls behind them. She tapped the screen, highlighting the cat's ears and eyes. His hearing is so sensitive that he can hear the ultrasonic squeaks of a rodent from 50 feet away. He can hear your heart beating faster right now, General. He knows you are afraid before you even realize it yourself. Sarah then pointed to Oliver's eyes. In total darkness, where your soldiers would be blind, Oliver sees perfectly. He has a special layer behind his retina that reflects light like a mirror. He doesn't just see in the dark, he owns the dark. To him, this scary interrogation room is as bright as a sunny day. He sees every movement of your claws, every twitch of your eyes. The room grew even colder as Sarah continued her explanation. She told them about the vibrissae, the whiskers. She explained that Oliver could feel the change in air currents around him. He didn't even need to look at an enemy to know exactly where they were standing. But the most dangerous thing about him isn't his claws or his eyes, Sarah said, her voice dropping to a low, dark whisper. It's his mind. Most predators in the galaxy kill because they are hungry. They kill because they have to survive. But a cat? A cat is one of the few animals on Earth that will hunt and kill simply because it is bored. They are surplus killers. They will catch something, play with it until it stops moving, and then leave it there just because they felt like it. General Vark looked at Oliver, who had suddenly stood up. The cat was staring at a Krell soldier in the corner. Oliver's jaw began to quiver, and he made a strange, rhythmic clicking sound, ek 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 ek. The soldier jumped back, raising his rifle in a panic. Is he calling for reinforcements? The soldier screamed. Is he signaling a human fleet? Sarah shook her head and chuckled. No. That's a chatter. He does that when he sees prey that he wants to catch but can't reach yet. He's not calling for help. He's telling that soldier exactly how he's going to bite through his neck. The general felt a wave of pure horror. He realized that humans didn't just find these creatures, they invited them into their homes. You keep these in your houses? Vark asked, his voice cracking. You let them sleep on your beds? Near your children? Are humans so insane that they treat monsters as friends? Sarah smiled, and for the first time, her smile looked dangerous. We don't just treat them as friends, General. We admire them. We keep them around to remind us that being small doesn't mean you aren't a killer. If we can live with a creature that can kill us in our sleep, imagine what we would do to an enemy who tries to take our home. The Krell looked at the tiny ginger cat, and for the first time in their history, they felt like the prey. The tension in the room reached a breaking point when Sarah opened the glass door of the arena. The Krell soldiers immediately stepped back, their heavy weapons rattling in their shaking hands. Oliver, the ginger cat, did not run. He did not hide. He stepped out of the cage with a slow, confident walk, his tail held high like a victory flag. He ignored the soldiers and the scientists, walking straight toward the center of the room where General Vark stood frozen. Vark, the conqueror of a dozen systems, found himself unable to move as the small orange creature stopped right at his feet. The general looked down, his red eyes wide with a mix of confusion and pure terror. He expected the cat to bite him or scratch his armor, but Oliver did something much more unsettling. He leaned his soft body against the general's cold, metal leg and began to rub his face against it, leaving orange fur on the Krell's pristine armor. Suddenly, a low, deep sound began to fill the quiet room. It started as a faint hum, but it quickly grew into a steady, rhythmic vibration. The Krell's advanced audio sensors on their helmets began to flash orange and red. Warning! Low-frequency vibration detected, a computer voice screamed over the speakers. The Krell scientists panicked, jumping away from their consoles. They had never heard a biological sound like this. To their ears, it didn't sound like a breath, it sounded like an engine warming up. It sounded like a countdown. General, move away, a scientist yelled. The creature is activating an internal power source. It is a sonic pulse. It might be a biological bomb. General Vark felt the vibration through his heavy boots. The frequency was strange. It was a deep, resonating thrum that seemed to vibrate his very bones. He looked at Sarah, his face pale under his dark armor. "What is this machine doing?" he barked, his voice filled with panic. "Is this a human trick? Is he overloading his core to destroy the ship? Stop the weapon, human, or we will fire." The soldiers raised their rifles, aiming their glowing blue barrels at the tiny cat. Oliver didn't seem to care. He looked up at Vark, closed his eyes halfway, and the rumbling sound grew even louder. The vibration was so strong now that it was actually rattling the loose metal plates on the floor. Sarah didn't move. She didn't look worried at all. In fact, she looked like she was enjoying the moment. She crossed her arms and waited for a few seconds before speaking. "It's not a weapon, General." "Well, not in the way you think," she said calmly. "That sound is called a purr. It's a sound cats make when they are content, or sometimes when they are healing. But in this moment, Oliver is doing something else. He isn't trying to blow up your ship. He is vibrating at a frequency that is known to lower blood pressure and reduce stress in humans. He is claiming you. In his mind, you aren't a great general or a scary alien. You have just been demoted to his favorite scratching post." The Krell soldiers looked at each other in total disbelief. "Content?" Vark whispered, his eyes still locked on the cat. "He is making this terrifying noise because he is happy. He is standing in a room full of guns, and he is happy." Sarah stepped forward and stood next to the general. "That's the part you don't understand about humans and cats. We spent thousands of years trying to master the world, but we let these creatures master us. We find that sound peaceful. We find it beautiful. But for you, it's terrifying because you can't control it. You have all the technology in the galaxy, but you are shaking because a 10-pound ball of fur is vibrating against your leg." The realization hit General Vark like a physical blow. He looked at his soldiers, then at the screens showing the Night-Stalker and the Death Ripper. Those monsters were scary because they were loud and violent. But Oliver was scary because he was a perfect killer that was also completely calm. He realized that if humans could turn a creature this dangerous and unpredictable into a household pet, then humans themselves were far more dangerous than the Krell had ever imagined. The purr wasn't just a sound, it was a psychological weapon that showed the Krell they were outclassed. The suspense shifted from a fear of a physical attack to a deep, chilling fear of human nature. The Krell were no longer the predators, they were just spectators in a game they didn't understand. The heavy silence in the interrogation room was finally broken by the sound of General Vark's trembling voice. He looked at his commanders, then at the holographic maps of the human solar system. With a slow, heavy movement, he reached out and swiped the maps away, deleting the invasion plans for Earth. The Krell soldiers lowered their weapons completely. They were no longer looking at Sarah as a prisoner, they were looking at her as the keeper of a monster. Vark turned to the human commander, his red eyes no longer glowing with anger, but with a deep, dark respect that bordered on terror. "Take your creature and leave," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The Krell Empire will not fight a race that keeps silent killers for amusement. If your pets are this capable, we do not wish to see what your soldiers look like when they are truly angry." Sarah did not say a word. She simply leaned down and picked up Oliver. The cat was still purring, his little body vibrating against her chest. She walked through the rows of giant, armored Krell warriors. As she passed, they stepped aside, clearing a wide path for her as if she were carrying a live nuclear bomb. They watched Oliver's tail flick back and forth, and every time the cat looked at a soldier, that soldier would flinch and tighten their grip on their spear. To the Krell, Sarah wasn't just a captain anymore, she was a woman who had tamed the untamable. They watched the two humans, the woman and the small orange beast, walk onto their transport ship, and for the first time in their history, the Krell felt a sense of relief to see an enemy leave. As the human ship detached from the Zog and drifted into the black void of space, General Vark stood at the observation window. He watched the small ship disappear into the stars. One of his scientists approached him, holding a tablet with Oliver's biological data. "General," the scientist asked, "should we study the footage to find a weakness? Should we prepare a counterweapon for these cats?" Vark shook his head slowly. "No," he replied. "The weakness isn't in the creature. The weakness is in us. We rely on fear and size to win wars. Humans rely on something else, a strange connection with the darkness. Any species that can sleep soundly while a cat watches them in the dark is a species that cannot be broken by fear. Earth is off limits. Forever." Back on the human ship, the atmosphere was much lighter. Sarah walked into the bridge and sat down in her captain's chair. Her crew looked at her with wide eyes, having watched the entire encounter through her suit's camera. "Did that really just happen?" the pilot asked, laughing nervously. "Did we just stop a galactic war because Oliver wanted to take a nap on an alien's foot?" Sarah smiled and placed Oliver on her lap. The cat immediately curled into a ball and went back to sleep, looking like the most innocent thing in the universe. "The Krell spent billions of credits building the perfect war machines," Sarah said, stroking Oliver's soft ears. "They studied every weapon and every strategy. But they forgot that the most dangerous things in the galaxy don't always have to be big." She looked out at the stars, feeling the steady weight of the cat on her knees. "I spent $5 on a bag of catnip and $10 on a plastic carrier," she whispered. "And with that, we saved the world. I think it's a fair trade." Oliver opened one eye, let out a tiny, soft mew, and then closed it again, drifting back into a deep sleep. He had no idea he had just saved billions of lives. He was just happy to be back in his favorite chair. The final image of the mission was not a giant explosion or a heroic battle, but a small, ginger cat dreaming of catching birds, while the most dangerous fleet in the galaxy sailed away in the opposite direction, terrified of the monsters that humans call best friends.